Hello, everybody. My name is Ratnos, and today we have a bunch of exciting patch notes about, well, there's the full patch notes of 9.1, but in particular, there is a hefty chunk of Mythic Plus information. So let's dive into exactly what's happening here. First off, right off the bat, auto attack damage of enemies reduced by 10%. I think a welcome change. I think a very heavy amount of incoming damage in dungeons came from auto attacks, which was pretty frustrating for tanks. This is, I think, the second time they've done this nerf, but it is a good one. So love to see it here. Also, there's information here about the scheduling of what's going to happen, which is when. So all of this is going to change on July 6th. That is the second week of the patch. That's the week that Heroic and Normal open up. And that is when everything is going to change for M+. So this first week of 9.1 is not going to be any different. It's going to be, just it'll have the tuning changes, but it won't have all of these, like, seasonal updates. It will still be Prideful, it won't be Tormented, and that will be the week where you're going to want to run the highest key you can if you're trying to get the highest key possible going into the new season. So they're increasing the item levels by 26 everywhere. There's some slight adjustments of the interim keystone levels as well, which means there's little steps of like 13 to 14 or whatever. Some of those are changing, whether they're upgrading the end of run item level or the Great Vault item level. Most notably, the highest item level rewards from Great Vault are now gated behind plus 15 keys rather than plus 14 keys. So that might change your farming plans. There's also been some buffs to heroic dungeons, and so this is the tuning increase. This is the scaling up of dungeons, which happens every patch, right? They increase everything, and that means that a 15 is, as hard as a 19 was the last season, but we're going to get new gear, right? So this is all of the changes that are designed to be offset by the new gear, more aimed at the M+ and Mythic levels, and less at the heroic levels, because they don't want to make heroic dungeons that much harder, because people are still going to be doing those on pretty fresh characters. So all of this is pretty standard here. The numbers don't surprise me by that much. They usually land around this level for Mythic Plus. It's interesting that they've increased the health more than the damage of enemies, but I think that's probably good news. So that's probably what I would have done also. New dungeon teleports are coming in. This has been known for a little while, which is if you time a 20, you will get a teleport to that dungeon. But what we didn't know is that it is an 8-hour cooldown, but it resets after completing a dungeon. So pretty sweet, pretty cool little cosmetic, utility thing that's gated behind really high-level content that very few people are going to do, but I think it's nice to have that kind of aspirational thing up there. Tassup in the Hall of Holding in Oribos will now offer a keystone to players who don't have a keystone, as long as they have completed at least one Shadowlands dungeon on Mythic Plus. Beautiful change. I hate coming back to a character and just not having a key on it because I haven't played it in a couple weeks or whatever, and I imagine it'll offer you a pretty low key. It'll give you like a 2 or whatever if you haven't done keys in ages, but still very welcome change rather than having to go and do a +0 to get that key. Probably still worth checking to see what that key level will be, and if it's like a +2, just don't run your key and run somebody else's key, and then if you run like a 14, you'll get a 13 key out of the end of it. Type thing. So this might be something that might bait you into collecting a key on characters that, it'd be better off just running somebody else's key and getting a higher key yourself. But Tassup now spawns at the end of M+ dungeons, as long as you time them. Offer a one-time keystone exchange to any player whose current keystone is at or below the level of the dungeon. So we still don't know 100% exactly, like some of this wording is still a little ambiguous, but the clarification up here, lets you re-roll your keystone once. So again, I don't know exactly how this is going to function. I don't know if this is, like, if one time here means, I imagine this means once per player per timed key, but I could see it functioning a couple different ways with this wording. Either way, however this works, it's a welcome addition of a little bit more flexibility to let you, re-roll a keystone if you've got one that you don't want after doing a key. Okay, M+ Affix weekly rotation has been updated. This is probably good news. The Affix calendar is quite lopsided at present. If you take a look at it, we've got such all-star hits as Bolstering Necrotic Tyrannical, Yeah, inspiring necrotic tyrannical, bolstering storming tyrannical. So I think that it makes some sense to go in here and change these. I'm a little bit apprehensive that there's a few weeks that like are very easy and fun right now. That I hope that they don't. Like, I mean, I guess it's probably good if they nerf the easy ones and buff the hard ones, but it also makes me a little sad because the easy ones are fun, because when the affixes are low impact, that means you can do the dungeon at a higher key, which actually makes it more challenging and interesting in a kind of counterintuitive way. So I really enjoyed those weeks. But I think in general, it's, this needs to, they need to take a look at this, particularly if they're going to incentivize us playing Tyrannical. It's worth looking at the other affixes that go next to Tyrannical. I hope that they let us know what the affix rotation is going to be, because otherwise I'm going to have to, all the content that I'm usually able to prep for reset, I'm going to have to do a frantic rush to do it, in the first couple days of a reset. So that'll be annoying, but I'll try my best to keep doing this week in Mythic Plus and stuff and get it out as soon as possible. But until we know the new weekly affix rotation, that's going to be probably delayed. It won't be the Tuesday thing that it has been up till now, unless they let us know what the rotation is going to be. Bolster has been slightly nerfed. We've talked about this a little bit before, but yeah, the health is now 15%, damage 20% per stack. A small nerf that will likely not change too many of those bolstering checkmate situations into ones that you can survive, but on the margins will be relevant. Level 61 enemies, so this is like lieutenants, now only apply Necrotic Wound on every other auto attack. Pretty small change again here as well. For the most part, Necrotic is a challenge on the level 60 enemies, not the level 61 enemies. Raging nerf here as well, which is going to make it a little bit less punishing to not have a Hunter, Rogue, or Druid soothing. Storming, they've reverted the damage decrease of Storming, which I think is totally fine, because they have kept these really important functional nerfs to it. Most importantly, it goes away once it hits one target, but also they always move in the same direction, and their speed has been reduced by quite a bit. So all in all, still a big set of nerfs to Storming that in particular is going to do a good job of making it less punishing to be triple melee versus like zero melee. All right, boss nerfs. We've talked about a lot of these already. Hakar nerfs coming in that will go a long way, particularly as you're doing Tyrannical or higher key Hakar, preventing it from kind of getting to this snowball of spending more time in the barriers, which means you have less time before the next barrier. All of that's going away because energy regen is paused when blood barrier's up. Dealer's Iexa also reducing the damage of Arcane Lightning and making vulnerability only affect the damage from lightning. Another good change on a boss, particularly once we're not going to have Pride to nuke this thing down in 20 seconds. Further reductions to Loyal Stoneborn damage, because those are our friends, not our enemies, because we Venthyr mind control them. I suspect this won't be the last we see these things nerfed until they're irrelevant. At some point, it's going to be worth just killing them for count, because they're going to get nerfed so much that they'll be really easy, but we're still a few nerfs away from that being the case. Shard of Halkia's thrash damage reduced and range increased. This one is one that I'm a little bit worried the meta is going to become move these to a spot where you can line of sight and then line of sight them. But the damage reduction is maybe enough to make it so you don't have to run away from this. I'm not sure, though. I think in even moderately high keys, you're still going to want to outrange this thing. It does a lot of damage still. And buff to the Wicked Bolt damage, which confuses me because in the keys I was doing, this was already the scariest part of those trash pulls. I understand wanting to make Halls of Atonement trash harder, but I think that the better way to do it would be to make more abilities challenging rather than make the already scary abilities even scarier. But I guess that's okay. Ingram Malik, we got some nerfs here to the first boss of Mists of Tir Scythe, which will reduce particularly the tyrannical slog factor of that fight. I think I'm pretty welcoming to these changes, especially because, again, this is another thing that in particular Pride was really useful for, right? That first burn. And with that going away, particularly because you're going to be fighting this boss with only 2 anima powers at most, I think it's a good change. Drust Bowbreakers, those are the big, things that do the thrash at 50% health. Those have gotten more health. They were already pretty healthy, but fair enough, make those things even scarier. And Spinemaw Staghorn's health as well going up. Bucking Rampage now triggers its cooldown on spell start. This is a cool change. So that's that big circle AoE around the Mistveil Guardians. And this means now you can stun them and they won't recast, is the TLDR of what that means, which is really good for melee that we're used to just having to run away until Bucking Rampage was done. Amarth, health reduction and Tortured Echoes damage reduction, another boss that I think is pretty reasonable to nerf and makes it a little bit less weapon required in high keys. Nalthor the Rime Binder, reducing the health of the little ads you go and kill on your little side quest, and buffing the Champion's Boon further. I think the goal is to eventually make it so it doesn't feel bad to get sent down, but that's a really hard goal to accomplish. This definitely is 2 moves in that direction, though. Globgrog nerfed. That's a hard boss. One of all the bosses in Plaguefall are pretty hard. I would have not been surprised to see this nerf really for any of them. Rigged Plague Borers during the Gauntlet now have limited spawns, and the ones outside the Gauntlet have been replaced with Wretched Plague Borers, which are the ones that don't explode. So, very serious nerfs to any Plague Borer-based strategy in Plaguefall. It will still be worth using the ones that are limited spawns. I think you get 4 waves of them, so using those to kill as much as you can will be valuable. It's kind of reminiscent to me of limiting the cannon shots, although these are also target capped, so it's not going to be like the Tol Dagor strategy where it's like, okay, we need to pull 20 mobs and we just only get 1 shot at it. It's going to be more like, we need to make sure we use all 4 of these waves of Plague Borers to kill an important pack if we can. But I'm welcoming of this change. Plague Borers are stupid, and mechanics that fight the dungeon for you instead of you fighting the dungeon are stupid, so I'm glad to see them becoming less important. Sanguine Depths nerfs to first boss, another boss that in particular, every early boss in dungeon is a boss that's going to be the most relatively harder in a tormented world than in a prideful world, right? Because you still, prideful was equally effective on the first boss and the last boss, but the anima powers will only have 1 or 2 for the first couple bosses, so they will be the ones where we're relatively nerfed the most, so it makes sense to target them with nerfs in particular. Crixus the Voracious, I think, just a great boss to nerf because that boss is really hard. That was a boss that wiped a lot of groups in Sanguine Depths, I would say, so good target there. And reduction of some damage on Tarvald. This was another boss that Pride really band-aided and made it so it died way faster than it became scary if you lined everything up well for it. Severing Slice now only strikes the primary target. That's the bleed from the gargoyles. Explosive Anger damage reduction. No more of the Growing Mistrust. That's that puddle. You know that puddle that just, instantly ticked as soon as you walked in it and, two-shot you from the Vestige of Doubt? That's no longer going to be in the game, so... Okay. That was annoying and frustrating. It was skill-intensive to notice it and play around it. I would have welcomed, smaller nerfs to it than just getting rid of it entirely, but it was definitely oppressive in the state it was in right now, especially to full melee groups, so... I think this is better than doing nothing to it. Explosive Vellum now detonates after 3.5 seconds, was 3. That's the red swirly from the Research Scribes that you need to get out of. That is pretty much a one-shot. So good there. Ventanax, huge nerfs here. Ventanax now will only ever have 2 Shadow Whirls. It'll be Shadow Whirl, recharge, delete the old 2, and then make 2 new ones. So instead of going up to having 4 of them being active, instead of 1-2 recharge 3-4, it'll be 1-2 recharge 1-2 again. Zero the Underhanded has returned, only on Mythic difficulties though, and they've reduced the health of the Oppressive Banner again. So yeah, that's what's happening to M+. This is the new set of changes here. Some of this had already been said. A lot of this is new though. In particular, I'm going to be interested most in seeing what this new weekly affix rotation is. A lot of good stuff is happening here. A lot of stuff that I would change or do slightly differently as well if I was in charge, but I'm not, and overall I'm very happy with this set of changes. I think this is good news for M+. I'm very excited about getting key re-rolling back in the game. Very excited about this auto-attack damage nerf as well. I think this is going to go a long way towards helping tanks not feel quite as squishy as they do right now. Yeah, all in all, bunch of good changes in here. A couple of weird ones. And only a few that I would be like, this is actively bad. So that's the M+ changes. Hope you found this video interesting. Let me know what you think. A lot of videos have been coming out on this channel recently, so if you haven't caught those, do check some of those out. I've got a lot of M+ and Raid and just general 9.1, content. So do come check that out. Much appreciated if you do. Check out my Twitch stream as well, twitch.tv/Dratnos. Thanks everybody for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye.